Yo, this is Lefty. So, channel is 45-10. Went 6-0 last week. Couple of fights went a little bit differently than what I thought they'd go. Shout out to Darrell. Took some shots early. Got hurt. Came back. Won rounds all the way up until when he got DQ'd. He won the fight. Old boy didn't win a round. Guy didn't win a round he didn't win a round after round 4. So it is what it is. Also, Beltran caught Marcelo with that left hook that I thought he'd catch him with. But anyway, this is a one-fight preview on the Showtime fight that is Errol Spence versus Brook. This is probably one of the best fights that can be made in boxing. So, as for my prediction, now Errol Spence is taking his first big step up, fighting world-class elite competition and going to the UK to do it. Brook is coming off of that loss against Triple G with the broken orbital bone up at 160. It's going to be 30,000 people there. Crazy atmosphere. Now, let's go over the positives for Errol Spence. Great body puncher. He's got good technique. He's active. He's got that active front side, as I like to call it, where he turns you, he jabs, he feints. He could, as a southpaw, he can. His front foot is always in good position too. Also, he can use that hook to the body and the head from the front hand, which is rare for a southpaw to even get authority on those punches. And he just systematically breaks you down. That's what he's shown. So, negatives are he can be open for shots when he's going to the body. And when he's throwing combinations, he's a little bit too square. His center line is kind of facing 10 or 11 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. Does that make sense? So your center line is here. If you want your center line to be facing that way as opposed to here or here, because the more to the side your center line is, the less of a target that you present your opponent. So when you hear someone saying that a guy's square, that means their center line is straight up. So also means their shoulders are square. But yeah, you want that center line to not be directly facing your opponent. Anyhow, good thing about Brook, he's pretty good at just about everything, and he's got good countering ability. Now, the negatives are that he just fought at 160. And he also had trouble making the weight for 147, or he will have trouble making the weight for 147. He talked about how much of a grind it was, and his nutritionist said they had this brilliant plan laid out, blah, blah, blah. Chavez, the trainer, said the same thing. The thing that I take with most of that is it was an effort. And if it was an effort, then there's a chance that come fight night, depending on how bad how much the effort was, there's a chance that he could not be at his best. And he needs to be at his best to beat Errol Spence. Also, there's the issue of the broken orbital bone and, basically his corner threw in the towel last fight. All that comes into play here. Not to mention that Errol Spence is fighting out of the southpaw stance. So Kell Brook's jab, I think, will be negated by Errol Spence's strong front side. His strong front side work. I think that's got a lot in this fight. I think that's got a good chance of happening. So with that happening, and assuming that would happen in this scenario, that basically leaves Kell Brook with either trying to pot shot from the outside and boxing at distance and losing ring generalship points and holding on the inside, or he can try to use that countering ability and take advantage of Errol Spence's bad center line positioning as the fight goes on. However, the bad thing about that is that if he does try to counter Errol Spence's combinations and tries to capitalize on that center line that Errol Spence is presenting mid-combination, especially on the ropes, you're gonna get caught with stuff. It's not just gonna be, like shots are gonna be landing, and if you counter him, eventually you gotta stand there and trade. So, he did that to an extent against Triple G. I think a lot of that was Triple G just backing him up and cutting off the ring like he always does. But, what's a younger, fresher, smaller guy like Errol Spence gonna do? He's gonna be able to have the same, ring cutoff ability as Triple G. So that's why I'm leaning toward Errol Spence in this fight, just based on him being younger, fresher. The southpaw positioning is big because that's going to eliminate Kell Brook's jab. And let's not forget, he had the broken orbital bone versus Triple G, and he, and Brook, I think, is battling weight issues, staying at 147. Not to mention, another big factor is that he had to, more than likely, he walks around at probably 170-ish, 175, and boils down for welterweight. What was he walking around at in between the fight before Triple G and leading up to the fight when he fought Triple G? Like, if he had to go from 170 to 175 to 147 on every other fight, and then he was like, ooh, I get to eat more, and then, do the, like I get to weigh in at 160 now. What was he walking around at, 180, 185? So basically he had to come down from 180 to 185, maybe, to make 147 again. I think, and he built himself up. It just wasn't, he was eating. Which means that he would have had to burn muscle to get down to 147. And usually that doesn't work that well. So I think if Kell Brook utilizes a game plan where he pot shots from the outside and tries to steal a unanimous decision, or steal like a decision or whatever, he'll go the distance. If he tries to counter Errol Spence, I think that's his best chance of winning, but also it could be his best chance of getting broken down. Because if I'm Errol Spence, what I want to see, if I was training Errol Spence, or if I'm Errol Spence, a big part of my game plan would be to go at that body and see how much those weight issues took out of him. And if he was battling weight issues, you do not want to be taking body punches. First thing I would do is run a check on that body, and expect Errol Spence to do that a lot. I think I'm favoring a decision here. But if Kell Brook sits down on his punches and tries to counter Errol Spence and doesn't play it safe, he's got a chance of getting broken down by the 9th or 10th round. So watch out for that. Anyway, this is Lefty. Support the channel. Thanks for those that do. And have yourself a great Memorial Day weekend. See you.